Welcome back for another deep dive. Instead of nice, neat source material this time, we're working with interview excerpts from a Spanish writer and poet named Antonio Gala. And, let's just say he had a lot to say about love.
It's fascinating stuff, though, because it's not like polished essays we're getting into. It's more like being right there in the middle of his thought process, kind of raw and unfiltered.
Yeah, and like full of contradictions, too. Like he lays out this whole staircase metaphor for love.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Starts with gustar,
Mm-hmm.
so just liking a person.
Right, like the first step.
Then it's queerer, which is a deeper kind of love.
More like you're really attached.
And then at the very top, amar, this deep, lasting kind of love. And it's kind of like he's mapping out relationship stages, but in this really insightful way.
It is. And you know what's interesting is that it actually lines up with a lot of psychological theories on attraction and attachment.
Totally.
Yeah, Gustar. That initial spark, then queerer, where you get that deeper emotional connection, maybe what psychologists would call attachment, and then you have Amar, that committed long-term love. But, even then, Gala doesn't shy away from how tough it can be to keep that going. He even jokes that at some point you might hit a point even with Amar where you're just like, get out of here, go see your mother.
Oh, yeah, been there for sure. But what really struck me is he says the biggest enemy of love isn't hate. It's this desamour, this like indifference. What do you make of that?
That's a really profound point, and it's especially relevant today, don't you think? Because desamour, as he talks about it, it's not about explosive fights or bad breakups. It's more like this slow creep of indifference, and that can be so much worse. It makes you think about all the ghosting that happens these days, people just disappearing from each other's lives, or even just this huge fear of commitment, especially now with dating apps. It's almost like people are more scared of that quiet death of passion than the loud kind.
So then he takes us right into the whole fidelity thing, which always gets interesting.
Yeah, this is where things get really complex with Gala because he's all about honesty, like really emphasizes it.
Yeah.
He even compares the truth to like a majestic tiger.
Oh, what?
A seniorial tiger. I think that was the phrase that really stuck with me.
Okay, it's not exactly how you usually hear people talking about telling the truth.
Right, but then he talks about how he struggled with infidelity himself, and it's like, wait a second, are you serious?
It did feel a little contradictory, I'll admit.
A little bit, yeah. But I don't think he's trying to say he's got it all figured out, It's more like he's being real about how we all struggle to live up to these ideals even when we believe in them.
Okay, I can see that. Nobody's perfect, right? But I keep thinking about that tiger thing, like, he really thought honesty was important.
Oh, absolutely. I think he saw it as the foundation of any relationship that's built to last because it creates trust. And when you hide the truth, even if you think you're doing the right thing, it erodes that foundation, It puts this distance between what you say and what you do, and that can be really damaging.
And that actually leads right into what he was saying about monotony and long-term relationships. It's like, okay, so you're committed, you're being honest. How do you keep things exciting?
Yeah, he doesn't pretend it's easy. He even tells this story about his first love. It all started one spring morning in the Sierra de Cordoba. He said a name, and the person with that name turned around just like that. It's incredibly romantic.
Wow, that's like out of a movie.
It really is.
And it makes you think about how Gala was looking for that perfect environment for love. A peaceful place where things could just thrive.
Right.
But maybe it's not about finding the perfect place. Maybe it's about building it together, no matter what's going on around you. What do you think?
I think that's a really important distinction because it's easy to get caught up in this idea that love needs a certain backdrop. But maybe real love is more about creating that world within the relationship itself.
And it's interesting that you bring up the idea of love as a shared creation, because it's like Gala himself saw this creative potential in love. He wasn't just talking about finding it. He was talking about building it, nurturing it, almost like tending a garden.
Absolutely. And just as a garden requires a diversity of elements to flourish, Gala's vision of love extends beyond the romantic. He places a high value on friendship, even going so far as to call love friendship with heroic moments. What a beautiful way to capture that blend of the everyday and the extraordinary that deep friendships encompass.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it? And it speaks to the richness of human connection in all its forms. But, I have to admit, when I was diving into these interviews, I did stumble over some of Gala's views on sexuality. He seems to kind of brush aside homosexuality as a lesser chapter. And yet he also talks about this concept of sex a la carte, which, to be honest, left me scratching my head a bit. Can you shed some light on that? What was he getting at?
You're right. Some of Gala's statements on sexuality do feel a bit jarring, especially when viewed through a modern lens. It's important to remember that these interviews took place in a different social and cultural context, where certain perspectives on love and relationships were more prevalent. As for sex a la carte, it's a fascinating, albeit somewhat cryptic concept. I think he was grappling with the idea of separating physical intimacy from emotional connection, perhaps exploring the possibility of a more fluid or customizable approach to relationships. It's a concept that continues to spark debate and discussion even today as we navigate the evolving landscape of love and intimacy in the 21st century.
It is fascinating, isn't it? And it just goes to show that while some aspects of love might be timeless, our understanding of it, our expression of it continues to change and evolve.
It does, and that's the beauty of engaging with thinkers like Gala. We may not agree with everything he says, but his willingness to grapple with these complex questions, to explore the nuances and contradictions of love, can inspire us to do the same.
Exactly. It's about embracing the messiness, the uncertainties, and even the disagreements as we try to make sense of this thing called love.
And if I could offer one final thought, inspired by our deep dive into Gala's world, it would be this. If, as Gala suggests, love is a landscape, we are all architects of our own unique creations within it. We choose the materials, the design, and most importantly, who we invite to share that space with us.
Now, that is a thought to carry with us. A huge thank you for joining us on this exploration of Antonio Gala's insights on love. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those hearts open to the ever-evolving landscape of love.